Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Congressman, for being here. Thanks to your service for our country. We appreciate all that you've done to protect us, to keep us safe. I agree with what one of my colleagues, Senator Alexander, said a minute ago, that public lands issues very often are different. When you ask people from different states, the reaction they might have might differ depending on what part of the country they come from. Those who are from east of the Mississippi are likely to feel a little bit differently than those west of the Mississippi. And there's a reason for this. There are a lot of reasons, but one in particular has to do with the fact that of this land that the federal government owns, we're talking roughly 30% of the landmass in the United States, the overwhelming majority of the federal land is in the western United States. It affects many in the western United States in a very real, very personal way, and very often it's the poor and middle class who bear the greatest burden associated with mismanagement and overreach when it comes to our federal land. For this reason, the seemingly limitless power granted to the President of the United States under the Antiquities Act is particularly troubling to some of us. With the stroke of his executive pen, the President of the United States can upend communities, can change traditional ways of life, change even religious practices, and lock up hundreds of thousands of acres of land with one action, in some cases over 1 million acres. So to begin, I want to ask you the same question I asked the person who will be your predecessor if you're confirmed, Sally Jewell, currently serving as Secretary of the Interior. Do you view local support as a necessary precondition, a condition precedent, we might say, to the creation of a national monument under the Antiquities Act?
I view it as absolutely critical to have state and local support on a monument that they participate in. In the case of Salt Lake or Utah, is that I'm concerned about the schools and the funding mechanism that the schools are. That's been largely taken away, as I understand. So that's a concern. But if you start at the local community level, at the grassroots, and you build, and there's participation, then we get ahead of the problem. As a former military officer, you plan, and planning prevents a lot of miscues in execution. And part of the planning process is go out, get community support, make sure your governor and your elected leaders are behind you, and then petition, talk to the president who makes the decision, and everyone should be on the same page, or at least about on the same page.
I appreciate that, and I hope, Congressman, that if you're confirmed to this position, that one of the first things you'll do is come to Utah, and I'd encourage you to talk to some of the people who have been affected by the monument designation by the President on December 28th, when he designated 1.35 million acres in southeast Utah, in San Juan County, our state's poorest county, against the overwhelming opposition of the local population of San Juan County, against the opposition of all 6 members of our state's congressional delegation, against the opposition of our governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, all of our statewide elected officials within the state of Utah. And I think what you're going to hear from them is, please, Mr. Secretary, do something about this. So, Congressman, if you're confirmed, will you consider visiting Utah, talking to the people affected by this monument designation? And based on what you hear from the affected population, consider having a conversation with President Trump about revisiting this unfortunate step?
Thank you for the question, and I'm absolutely committed to restoring trust. And if confirmed, I've committed to go out to Utah first and talk to the governor, talk to the people on the ground, and come back and make a recommendation to the president on that. I think that's important.
Thank you.
I'm going to be a very busy guy. I'm going to go out to the state of Washington. I'm going to go out to Alaska. I think I've committed to go to everywhere. So I'm going to be remote. This is going to be deployment. I apologize to my wife in advance, but I'll be gone a lot.
Thank you, and thank you for willingness to do that. I've got seconds left, so I will have to forego the rest of my questions. But I do want to say in closing, I appreciate you visiting with me about this. I want to point out that there is nothing in the Antiquities Act that prohibits revisiting. And I also want to point out there is a distinction between talking about who should own and manage public land, those close to it or those thousands of miles away from it, and on the other hand, suggesting that ExxonMobil should set up a drilling rig underneath Delicate Arch. That is a straw man argument and not one that anyone that I know of raising this issue wants to advance. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Stabenow.